Welcome back to O.R.B.I.T.S Consulting. My name is Manal Zainuddin, Global Education Consultant and founder of O.R.B.I.T.S Development Code, an approach for conscious learning and being. This podcast highlights education communities from macro and micro angles. Education is holistic and as vast and infinite as the cosmos. I extend Plutarch's famous quote that I had posted in the schools I have worked in. The mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be kindled. Today we talk about DEI, or diversity, equity, inclusion. And this has been one of the most important and critical themes in the fields of education and so many other disciplines all around the globe, considering whatever is happening. The United Nations under human rights state, and I quote, "The purpose of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, or CRPD, is to promote, protect, and ensure the full and equal enjoyment of all human rights and fundamental freedoms by all persons with disabilities, and to promote respect for their inherent dignity." End quote. So diversity is having those diverse groups, learners and teachers, for example, in the school community, from different backgrounds, different origins, with different abilities and perspectives. So diversity, in a way, is the stem of the other three. Inclusion is the I in the diversity, equity, inclusion, the DEI. And in its simple definition, inclusion is the action or state of including or being included within a group or structure. It is this practice or policy of providing the equal access to opportunities, to resources for people who might be marginalized or might be neglected in a way or another, such as those who have physical or mental disabilities and members of other minority groups. There are 5 essential strategies for inclusive instruction. Number 1, offering students voice and choice. Number 2, collaborative learning. Number 3, practicing warm demanding. Number 4, tapping the power of dynamic instructions. And number 5, creating meaningful partnerships with families. So having said all that, inclusion supports diversity. Having, like mentioned, all those diverse groups coming from different backgrounds, origins, with different abilities and perspectives. Inclusion goes beyond integration in the sense that it is about those diverse groups and individuals being fully engaged and fully active within their activities and the community. And inclusion also stirs ideas that bring these diverse groups or individuals closer to the core of the community. And this is what is most important in the entire process. And in this way, it creates environments for them to be productive and to be prolific in whatever talents they may have, because they do have talents just like everybody else. Inclusion also eliminates barriers of lack of acceptance or this state of intolerance or discrimination. And this is what we have seen in so many communities all around the world. Inclusion ensures that all diverse groups are brought into the learning and social emotional circles with genuine care and understanding of their needs. So it means that there is an ingrained culture that responds and respects all those individuals and their needs. And I usually design principles that school leaders and teachers can use for quality management. And I will be sharing the PDF that helps in rating our practices. And some criteria can help in assessing actually our practices. For example, for inclusive education planning, school statement, which is the vision, mission, objectives, and values, sets foundations for inclusive education planning. There is a clearly identified system for inclusion in the school that fully supports diversity. And here, throughout all these criteria, the leaders and the teachers can rate from either 4 or 1, from the highest to the lowest. We continue, for example, discovering our barriers like physical and or sensory barriers, social and emotional barriers, cognitive barriers, communication barriers, and all these barriers, we are checking whether we are practically and coherently addressing them. We also check if there is a clear system of assessments that tailors to the needs of the learners, because without measuring whatever practices we are doing, we cannot make sure that our practices are relevant and are reliable and accountable. Inclusion as a concept is explained to the community through awareness sessions, through extracurricular activities and partnerships, because here we want to foster justice, love and care and community. Need for diversity, because diversity is needed by every community. We want to cherish our differences, and inclusion as a concept is welcomed and fostered in the community. In this way, it creates a culture of inclusion, and that's the highest type of performance that we can reach when we are able to create a culture of inclusion. In conclusion about inclusion, Verna Myers puts it in a very beautiful way when she differentiates between inclusion and diversity. And I quote, "Diversity is being asked to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance." End quotation. The E in DEI, or diversity, equity, inclusion, stands for equity. And here, considering the misunderstood interchangeability of equity and equality, it is important to explain the two terms. Equality means that there are no discriminations between people. Each individual or group of people is given the same resources, the same opportunities. Equity means that each person has different circumstances and conditions, and based on that, he or she is given the right resources, the relevant resources and opportunities needed for this person or this group to reach an equal goal or outcome. It's like personalizing tools and resources as per the needs of those individuals or groups. So there are important points or key points about equity and equality. Equity and equality support and directly support diversity. They are also not processes, and it's very important to understand that they are not processes, they are goals that need supportive environments and resources to help them be achieved. And that's why it's important that school leadership provides supportive environments through the right tools and the right programs. Also, equity and equality stir ideas that bring these diverse groups or individuals closer again to the core of the community and create environments for them to be productive. Equity and equality connect directly to social justice at its low and high levels, and this is so important, especially at this critical period of time. And we all know what has been happening throughout all the world with the crisis and so many other factors interfering. We truly need social justice, and equity and equality eliminate barriers, again, of lack of acceptance and discrimination. And most importantly, and this is what we need because we are not always thinking about the negative, we are also thinking about the positive. Equity and equality empower individuals and balance our communities. Equity and equality, again, ensure that all individuals and diverse groups are brought into the learning and the social emotional circles with this great genuine care and understanding of the needs and the need of our community to have this diversity. And like I mentioned, I always design printables that can help teachers and leaders try to assess their practices. And I will also be linking the PDF in the description box about equal and equitable education planning, EEE planning. And it's a type of rubric that ranges from 4 to 1, from highest to lowest, which teachers and leaders can use as a very brief but clear guideline to assess their practices. So again, mainly starting with the school statement, the vision, mission, objectives, and values, setting foundations for EEE, or equal and equitable education. There is definitely a clearly identified system for equity and equality in the school, and this is something we have to assess. We talk also about the barriers, the physical, sensory barriers as well, emotional, cognitive, communication, and here we add also the cultural barriers, because we know that when it comes to equal and equitable education, it is critical. We know that part of the community structure does not foster equality and equity. We know that there are factors that are salient, which we cannot easily handle and resolve. But within a school community, there are always ways to bridge that. And that's why bringing together all the stakeholders, discussing those barriers, trying to fill in gaps, then we can solve as many obstacles as possible. There is also a clear system of assessments, the qualitative and quantitative, so that we can measure stability and progress. Equity and equality as concepts are again explained to the community through awareness sessions, extracurricular activities, and partnerships again. And here we are targeting the need for social justice. And equity and equality as concepts are welcomed and fostered in the community in order to create a culture of social justice, because the culture itself becomes the glue. It's the glue that holds our entire community together. So summing up with this quotation, diversity is a fact, equity is a choice, inclusion is an action, belonging is an outcome. Ending up this episode with this open-ended question for all of us to ponder. Amid the hustle of our assurances in numbers, in words, and the juggling of our daily tasks, are we aware or ignorant of our inactions? And what exact lifelong end purpose do we have in mind as we foster diversity, equity, and inclusion?